Forget everything, everything those aquarium posters have taught you about dolphins.
Oh, throw it all out.
Exactly. Because beneath all those playful jumps and coordinated swims, there is this surprisingly brutal, like highly aggressive social landscape.
It really is. It is not the friendly image we usually get.
Right. And today, we are looking at some new data from the National Academy of Sciences. It reveals that bottlenose dolphins are operating less like, peaceful oceanic surfers and a lot more like coordinated crime syndicates.
Which is a wild shift in perspective.
It totally is.
Yep.
So welcome to the deep dive. This is your custom-tailored journey into the things you need to know, built entirely around the sources you have brought to the table.
And we have some fascinating source material today.
We really do. Our mission today is to figure out exactly how female dolphins navigate this intense environment, specifically using long-term memory and vocal recognition.
Right, because they are making these highly informed strategic decisions.
Yeah, based on literally years of collected social data just to survive.
Hmm.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Because the reality of what is happening under the waves is, well, it is incredibly complex.
It is. It completely shatters that utopian vibe we tend to project onto these animals,
Absolutely. We always think of them as so happy and carefree.
Right. But it really does force a complete paradigm shift. I mean, when we strip away our human romanticization of the ocean and look at the actual behavioral ecology detailed in this PNAS study, we find a very different world.
A much harsher world.
Extraordinarily harsh, especially during mating season. And to understand the brilliant evolutionary counter-strategies these female bottlenose dolphins are deploying, we first have to establish the baseline of the threat they're facing.
And that threat comes in the form of highly organized male alliances.
Exactly.
Like the source material details how during mating season, male dolphins don't just compete individually. They form these complex, multi-tiered coalitions.
They team up.
Yeah, they team up to herd female dolphins into what researchers officially categorize as forced mating events.
Which is a very clinical term for a very intense behavior.
Right. It basically operates incredibly similarly to a high-stakes blockade or like a hostile gang turf war.
That is a really good way to put it. The mechanics of that behavior are deeply tactical.
How so? Like, what are they actually doing?
Well, the males use their alliance to physically restrict a female's movements. They strategically corral her into specific geographic areas.
Oh, wow. So they are cornering her.
Yes, exactly. They push her into areas where their own allies can provide immediate backup. And simultaneously, they are aggressively defending their control over her from other rival male alliances.
Because other gangs might try to steal her away.
Precisely. They might try to ambush them. So it is this multi-layered cooperative military-style operation. We are talking about primary alliances of 2 to 3 males.
Right.
And they sometimes even team up with other groups to form second-order alliances, all of them working together just to maintain this blockade.
The detail in the sources that absolutely stopped me in my tracks was the timeline of these events.
Oh, the duration is staggering.
Because you'd think, okay, a brief, chaotic scuffle, right? But no. The study notes these forced mating events can last for hours and often stretch out for weeks.
Yes.
Weeks. Wait. Weeks. Like actual weeks. How does a marine mammal even survive being corralled and restricted for weeks on end?
It sounds impossible, right?
I mean, I'm looking at the biological mechanics here. Dolphins have a really high metabolic rate. They need to hunt and forage constantly to maintain their energy.
Right, they burn a lot of calories.
So being pushed into an acute caloric deficit while being constantly harassed, it just seems totally unsurvivable.
It is a devastating expenditure of energy for sure. The physiological toll is just immense. You have the acute caloric deficit you mentioned, but you also have the compounding factor of extreme sleep deprivation.
Oh, because they can't rest while being chased.
Right. So cetaceans rely on unihemispheric slow-wave sleep.
Which means they sleep with half their brain at a time.
Exactly. Essentially resting one half of their brain while the other half stays awake. And they do that to monitor for predators and, remember to surface for air.
Which is crucial.
Right. But when a female is being actively herded, she has to constantly monitor multiple aggressors on all sides. Her unihemispheric sleep cycles are completely disrupted.
That sounds like torture.
It really is. And the male alliance, well, because they have numbers, they can rotate their active enforcement duties.
Oh, so they take turns resting.
Exactly. Which allows them to rest while keeping the female in this state of constant, exhausted hypervigilance.
Wow. So they are literally weaponizing exhaustion.
That is exactly what they are
And
doing.
looking at the data, there is a clear spectrum to this behavior, right? Like not all males are equally aggressive.
Right, there's a lot of
The
variation.
researchers identified these repeat offenders, specific male alliances that engage in this relentless herding and forced mating behavior, like far more frequently and brutally than others.
What's fascinating here is that this extreme, sustained physical pressure from the males, it forces an equally extreme cognitive counter strategy from the female.
Because they can't fight back physically.
Exactly. A single female cannot overpower a coordinated physical blockade of multiple males. She has to find a different escape hatch.
Right.
So if she cannot outswim them in a physical confrontation, she has to outthink them before the encounter even begins.
Since physical escape is energetically impossible over a multi-week blockade, evolution provided a mental armor instead.
Mental armor, yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The study reveals that female dolphins specifically remember which individual males were the most aggressive to them in the past.
They hold a grudge, basically.
Yeah, they hold on to this specific threat data. And they know exactly who is who because they recognize these individual males by their unique calls.
Their acoustic signatures.
Right. It is essentially this vocal caller ID for toxic individuals, like an acoustic threat matrix. They are parsing a long-term database, matching a sound to a historical threat level.
Acoustic threat matrix is the perfect way to look at it, actually. Dolphins use these specific vocalizations known as signature whistles.
Which are like names, right?
Basically, yeah. Every individual dolphin develops a highly stereotyped, unique whistle, usually within their first year of life. And it functions essentially as a name.
That's so cool.
It broadcasts their specific identity to the rest of the ocean. So what these female dolphins are doing is permanently linking that specific acoustic signature to the historical behavioral data they have gathered on that exact male.
And the physics of their environment makes this acoustic reliance an absolute necessity, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%.
Because in the vastness of the ocean, visibility can be terrible.
Right, you can't always see very far.
Yeah, but low-frequency acoustic signals travel exponentially faster and further than visual cues underwater.
Sound propagates through water roughly 4.5 times faster than it does through air.
That is incredible. So by relying on an acoustic signature rather than waiting for a visual confirmation, a female effectively expands her threat detection radius by miles.
By the time she could visually identify an aggressive male alliance approaching, she would already be well within their physical striking distance.
And the blockade would already be happening.
Exactly. Acoustic information is the primary currency of survival for cetaceans. By relying on sound, she gains the single most valuable resource in any threat scenario.
Which is time.
Time. She buys herself the time to calculate an evasion route, change course, and completely avoid the physical encounter.
Which means they aren't just reacting to an immediate stimulus in the water, like they're actively calculating.
It is highly strategic.
If we look at the cognitive load required for this, it is staggering. I mean, think about it. They have to hear a whistle, filter it through the acoustic masking of background ocean noise.
Right, all the waves and other marine life.
Yeah, and then identify the specific caller, query their own long-term memory regarding that individual's past behavior, and then execute a strategic evasion plan.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this behavior proves a stunning level of social intelligence.
It really does.
These females are cataloging complex social data over a span of years, if not decades.
Decades. That is wild.
And then they're applying that historical data strategically to their current reproductive choices. When they are receptive to mating, they actively avoid the repeat offenders.
So they're making highly informed decisions based on a deep, nuanced understanding of their local social network.
Yes.
It is a deeply practical, survival-based grudge. They are identifying the worst actors in their ecosystem and giving them a wide berth.
Exactly.
But, as we transition from observational theory to empirical proof, there is a massive hurdle here.
Oh, absolutely. Proving it is the hard part.
Right. It is one thing to observe dolphins swimming away from certain sounds in the ocean and theorize, oh, they must remember the caller.
Yeah, making that leap is easy.
But it is another thing entirely to definitively prove that this acoustic threat matrix is actually operating in their minds.
Moving from theory to empirical proof is the hardest part of animal behavior science. I mean, you cannot just ask a dolphin why it swam left instead of right.
Right, you can't just hand them a survey.
Exactly. And that is exactly what makes the methodology of this PNAS study so groundbreaking. The researchers designed a highly controlled playback experiment to isolate and test this exact cognitive mechanism.
Yeah, they did this in a very specific place, right?
Yes. They utilized a very deeply understood location to do it. Shark Bay, Western Australia.
The Shark Bay project is really the foundation of this entire discovery.
It is.
The source material emphasizes that this isn't just, some random bay where scientists dropped a microphone for a few weeks.
Oh, no, not at all.
Shark Bay is home to a population of bottlenose dolphins that has been continuously, meticulously studied for over 40 years.
That longitudinal data is everything. To understand a female dolphin's memory of a male's past behavior, you yourself as a researcher have to know that male's past behavior.
Right, you need the baseline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because scientists have been observing these specific dolphins for 4 decades, they already had that baseline data. They weren't just tagging them and walking away.
So how do they keep track of them for that long?
They use rigorous dorsal fin photo identification. Every single notch, scar, and fin shape is continuously cataloged.
That is so much work.
It is. But through thousands of hours of focal follows, the researchers had documented exactly which male alliances were historically the most aggressive. They knew which males engaged in those forced mating blockades the most frequently.
Wow.
And they knew which specific females were targeted.
They literally possess the historical rap sheets for the entire pod.
That is exactly what it is.
So armed with this data, the researchers deploy hydrophone arrays and underwater speakers. And they play recordings of the unique signature whistles of specific male dolphins to female dolphins in the wild. Now, I have to admit, I initially pushed back on this when reading the study.
Why is that?
Well, I was thinking, of course a wild animal is going to swim away if a loud, disembodied sound suddenly booms out of an underwater speaker.
Ah, right.
Like, how do we know the females weren't just startled by the sudden noise? That is just a generic startle response, right?
That is a very valid critique, and it is something the researchers had to account for.
But looking at the control variables they used, it becomes clear this was entirely calculated.
The control variables are the genius of the experimental design here. If it were just a startle reflex to noise, the females would flee from any sudden sound or, at the very least, from any male dolphin's whistle.
Right, they would just scatter.
But that is not what the data showed. The females who were ready to mate did not indiscriminately flee. They specifically and deliberately avoided the recorded calls of the males known to be the most aggressive.
Just the repeat offenders.
Exactly. When the researchers played the signature whistles of less aggressive males, or neutral control sounds, the females did not exhibit that same extreme evasion behavior.
So they didn't just flinch and scatter.
No.
They parsed the acoustic data, identified the specific caller, and engaged in targeted evasion only when the historical threat level warranted it.
Right.
And sources mention they even modified their surfacing behavior, right, to minimize their own acoustic footprint while slipping away.
Yes, they engaged in stealth evasion. It is incredible. It proves definitively that the females are accessing long-term memory regarding an individual's past actions and making a calculated decision to avoid the area based solely on acoustic signature.
That is amazing.
It really is. And this raises an important question about the nature of scientific funding and how we conduct behavioral research today.
How so?
Well, in an era that increasingly demands quick quarterly results and short-term laboratory studies, the Shark Bay project is a monumental testament to patience.
Because you cannot shortcut decades of observational data.
Exactly. Without 4 decades of scientists passing the baton, spending thousands of hours on the water meticulously recording which male did what to whom year after year, we would literally never be able to decode this level of cognitive complexity.
We wouldn't have the context.
We wouldn't have known the individual histories of these specific dolphins, and those playback experiments would have yielded nothing but contextless noise in the water. We need human generations of data just to understand a single dolphin generation's social network.
That is a profound point. So what does this all mean? Let's bring this directly back to you, the listener. The next time you see footage of dolphins effortlessly gliding through the water, you now possess the secret context.
You know the truth.
Exactly. Beneath that shimmering, peaceful surface, these animals are navigating a relentless, multi-decade soap opera.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a highly charged world of complex alliances, coordinated blockades, long-held grudges, and incredibly strategic, stealthy evasion.
They're definitely not just swimming around randomly.
Right. They weren't just reacting to the immediate currents or whatever fish is in front of them. They are continually running a high-level threat matrix, making calculated life choices based on years of carefully recorded social data.
It completely dismantles our human-centric view of intelligence and memory, don't you think?
Oh, 100%.
We have this bias where we tend to reserve traits like long-term memory, holding grudges, and evaluating the character of our peers based on past actions as uniquely human
We
capabilities.
definitely do. We assume other species live entirely in the present moment.
Right. But here we have rigorous, peer-reviewed evidence that human-like memory and consequence exist deep in our oceans.
It is humbling.
It is. These female dolphins are demonstrating that the ability to learn from historical trauma, to instantly recognize the source of that trauma across vast distances, and to actively protect oneself in the future is a profound, deeply ingrained evolutionary tool.
It is like a brilliant silent rebellion against sheer physical dominance.
The silent rebellion using sound. I love that.
It completely changes how you view their intelligence. And, it leaves me with one final lingering thought.
Oh, what is that?
Well, it is something that wasn't explicitly tested in this particular set of Shark Bay experiments, but it feels like the inevitable next step based on the logic of everything we have just unpacked.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
If these female dolphins possess the cognitive hardware to memorize the specific signature whistles of aggressive males for years in order to calculate their own evasive maneuvers,
Right.
is it possible they're also using their own unique calls to warn other females about them?
Oh, wow. Like an acoustic warning network.
Exactly. If they know exactly who the toxic males are and they understand acoustic signaling perfectly, are they gossiping?
That is a fascinating idea.
Are they broadcasting this shared do not date list across the entire pod to protect their kin? It really makes you wonder just how deep the conversation is going in the dark of the ocean when we aren't listening.